up is a priority read of 2025. I also want to try to stop reading Goodreads reviews before I've read a book. I definitely realise that I'm someone who really enjoys flowery and really descriptive writing. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Maria, and today's video was initially supposed to be my kind of bookish goals for 2025, all the things I want to concentrate on, things I'm planning to do this year, how many books I'm planning to read, and it is still going to be that, but I did see Larry's video, so Larry Reads doing her start of the year book tag, and I just thought that was going to be a really fun way to kind of go through all the things I'm wanting to do this year, go through all of my goals, and just basically talk about all of my bookish plans for 2025. So definitely jumping on the bandwagon here. I've seen quite a few readers now do this one, but it's a really good tag, and as I say, just a really fun way to kind of go through all of that stuff I was going to be talking about anyway. So quite a few questions to get through, so I'm not too sure how long this is going to take, but definitely get yourselves cozy, get a nice hot drink, get a snack, and yeah, let's just go through all of my bookish goals for 2025. Okay, so the first question is a pretty easy one, and it's how many books are you planning to read in 2025? And I generally just set my target at a kind of clean 100 books, and for some people that's quite a lot, for some people that's not that much, but for me personally, I think I usually land in and around, for the past few years anyway, anywhere between kind of 130 to 150. 100 is really achievable for me, but the thing with me is I just never want it to seem like it's a chore that I have to read, or I will pressurize myself if I'm not getting near the number that I have set as my target. So I just wanted to be quite stress-free. I do want to try and read 100 books because I think that's a good number. It kind of hits me at around 2 books per week on average, but it gives me the freedom then to read some longer books, some more intense books, and books I may want to mull over a little bit longer. So it just means I don't put pressure on myself, but it is still kind of a big enough number that it will motivate me to still be reading. And yeah, 2 books per week I think is plenty for anyone to read. If I can get more than that, I think I usually average around 3, then that's perfect. But yeah, either way, I just don't want it to be a stressful number for me. And then question 2 is, what book do you plan on rereading? And to be honest, I haven't really thought about what I want to reread, but there are a few books that I'm kind of always having on my mind that I would love to revisit them and love to reread them. The first one is An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. I would love to reread that entire series. It's one that's really near and dear to my heart, and I absolutely love it. And after reading Air that came out last year, it just reignited that love I had for it. So would love to try and read that this year if I can. Additionally, would also love to try and reread Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. So again, it's one of my god tier books, god tier duets to be fair, and I just really want to reread it now that I kind of know the base story and I can really concentrate on the detail, concentrate on the writing, and really just soak it all in again. Then another book I would love to revisit is, and another series really, is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. Now, I did read Legendborn and Bloodmarked a couple of years ago, but the third book, Oathbound, is coming out in March, so I may try and squeeze in a reread, even if it's just through the audiobooks of the first 2 books, just to refresh my memory. I just remember really loving them and really enjoying the story, and I've been highly anticipating this third book for quite some time, so I don't want to go into it without having the details and then maybe ruining my experience. So I think I definitely will try and fit in a reread of those 2 books before that third book comes out as well. Next up is a priority read of 2025, and I've done a couple of videos of kind of my anticipated releases and my 25 for 25, so I'll link them below if you do want to have a bit more of a in-depth discussion about the books that I'm looking to get to this year. But for me, a real priority read is All My Rage by Sabaa Tahir, and obviously I love her other series, I love her other world that she's built. This one is more of literary fiction, and it's partly why I haven't picked this up yet, but I've seen nothing but great reviews for it. Everyone seems to think it's an amazing book, so that is definitely a priority read for me this year. Then the next question is something new I want to read, so either new genres, new tropes and things like that, and I think for me I do just want to try and get back into reading more high fantasy that has more of a romance subplot, or romance doesn't necessarily need to be part of the plot at all, but just more of those high fantasy stories that I had read in the past, and I do really enjoy them, and especially if it's like a show format or a movie format, I've always really enjoyed those. And just with reading some of the Brandon Sanderson and some of the J. Kristoff novels last year, it's really reignited my love for that genre, so definitely going to be trying to branch out a bit more and read a bit more high fantasy that isn't so romance heavy or basically led by the romance. I still love romantasy, it probably will always be my favourite genre, but just trying to branch out a little bit in that one. I do also want to try and branch out even more and read a bit more literary fiction, so I see a lot of people talking about these books and they're very poetic and, you know, very understated. They're not, you know, action heavy or anything like like that. And I always think, oh, am I going to enjoy that? Will I find it boring? But I've read quite a few literary fiction that have just been really impactful and really enjoyable, maybe the wrong word, because sometimes they are pretty heavy topics that you're talking about, but I have really enjoyed them. So again, I just want to branch out a little bit, try and get out of my romantasy and fantasy bubble, read a little bit more literary fiction. And then I do also want to explore the sci-fi genre as well, because previously I had kind of scrubbed it off as it's not for me. I'm not really interested in anything set in space with planets or anything like that. But having read a few last year, you know, Gideon the Ninth being one that ended up being an absolute 5-star for me, I do think I need to revisit that genre. I don't think it's ever going to be a genre that I'm auto buy. You know, I'm not going to be able to just pick up any sci-fi book and enjoy it. I do think it's going to be quite a specific subset of the sci-fi genre that I will enjoy. So I think Brandon Sanderson has a few sci-fi novels, so I may even try his, because obviously I know I like his writing, but potentially I will like his sci-fi ones as well. Next up is a popular book that I want to read in 2025, and for me it's really just anything by Abby Jimenez. So romance, again, isn't a genre that I tend to gravitate to all the time. I always enjoy it when I read it, but it's just not the first genre that I kind of gravitate to when I'm thinking of what I want to read next. And Abby Jimenez is a romance author that a lot of people on Booktube and Bookstagram seem to really love. They say that most of her books have a bit of a deeper meaning, and it really is exploration of the characters, and the character arcs are really good in there. So definitely just want to explore her backlog and start that, because I haven't read anything by her, but I keep seeing her books being mentioned, and quite honestly I just got FOMO. I really want to know what everyone's loving about those books, so definitely hoping to pick up some of her books this year. And then next up is the most anticipated release this year, and as I say, I did do an anticipated releases video, and I think there was around 30 something books on there, so it's going to be really hard for me to pick out. But I do think if we get some information on Burden of the Everflame by Payne Cole, that's definitely going to be up there with one of my top anticipated releases. As I say, Oathbound by Tracy Dion, following on from the Legendborn series. We have Catabasis by R.F. Kuang, and the premise of this just sounds so good, and mixing that with her writing style, I just think it's going to be perfection. And yeah, there's just so many I could mention. Again, I'll link the video down below with all of my anticipated releases, because as I say, all 33 of them are highly anticipated. And we did actually just get news, just while I remember, Stephanie Garber is going to be coming out with a new book. It's going to be an adult book, it's a different publishing house, and it's called Alchemy of Secrets. I didn't even read the synopsis, so I can't tell you what it's about, but it's pre-ordered. Let's just say it's pre-ordered, so that's definitely a highly anticipated release for me this year that isn't in that video. So then next up we get into the bookish goals, and all of the goals that I want to kind of work towards this year, things I want to try and incorporate. And I think one of the main things is to try and utilise my Kindle Unlimited and Spotify subscription a lot more than I do, and Libby, and obviously using the library as well. I'm paying for subscriptions every month, and there is some months that I actually don't use my Spotify audiobook or use my Kindle Unlimited, whether it's just to read an ebook of a physical copy that I have or trying to discover something new. So I need to make sure that every month I have at least one book from Kindle Unlimited on my TBR to kind of justify the price that I'm paying. Spotify I do pay for the music as well, so I can justify that a little bit more, but definitely need to use my Kindle Unlimited. And I do also have Everand, which I think used to be called Scribd. So again, just making sure that I'm using at least one audiobook a month from that to make sure I'm getting my money's worth. I do tend to utilise Libby quite a lot for audiobooks as well, so obviously if they're available I will download them on Libby. Ebooks in the UK we can't send them to our Kindle, so I hate reading off my phone or my iPad, but I should actually just try to do that for books that I'm maybe a little bit unsure of. Even try to read a few chapters of the ebook on my iPad just to see if it's something that I will enjoy before purchasing something either on my Kindle or a physical book. So yeah, just basically trying to use the subscriptions that I've got and making sure I'm utilising them to the full potential and getting my money's worth. I also want to try and concentrate on only reading things that I'm loving and not being afraid to DNF. So in the past I've definitely been a person who will not DNF a book, even if it's terrible, even if I'm hating it, even if I know I'm going to give it nothing more than a 3-star. I will just keep pushing through, because I think, what if that last 50% is really good? What if the last 25% is really good and I'm going to miss it? I'm not going to get to experience that. And quite honestly, there was a few books at the end of 2024 that I decided just to DNF because I wasn't feeling them, and I worried that they were going to be books that I couldn't get off my mind. I wasn't going to stop thinking about them, and I haven't thought about them once, you know, so they obviously weren't that impactful. I obviously didn't care that much about the story, and I think after DNFing a book, if you're not thinking about it even within the next few days, which for those books I wasn't, then that can be very telling in terms of how much I was enjoying them. So yeah, just try and really make sure I'm not wasting time on books I'm not loving, especially if they're just popular books that I'm thinking, oh, I'm obviously missing missing the point here, or books that I maybe wouldn't normally read but everyone else loves them. I just really want to concentrate on reading what I love, and as I say, not being afraid to DNF when it's not something that I'm enjoying. And then, as I say, just with the tropes and the genres that I'm wanting to read, I want to read outside of my comfort zone a little bit. As I say, trying to read a bit more sci-fi, which is really out of my comfort zone. It's definitely something that I've got a bit of a stigma about, so definitely wanting to do that. Reading high fantasy, I usually get quite intimidated by it, feel like I'm not going to understand it, I'm not smart enough to understand it, but most of the time when I read it, there's absolutely no problems with me comprehending what's going on. And yeah, just getting out of that mindset of, oh, there's a certain amount of books that I'm going to enjoy, just breaking out of that mold and trying to find new things that are my favourites, new genres that are my favourites, and read books that I maybe wouldn't have read before just because they're not in the certain genre that I enjoy. This next one is one that I am going to try and work on. I was working on it last year and let's just say it wasn't very successful, but trying to read from my physical TBR. I know, I do book hauls every month. I tend to buy new books all of the time. My physical TBR just grows and grows, but I do need to be better about not being so impulsive about books that I'm buying to sit on my shelves, you know, trying not to buy books that I know are going to sit there for at least a year before I pick them up, but also being really conscious of actually reading through my physical TBR before buying too many more new books. This is a loose goal. We'll see how this one goes, but it will be something that I'll be trying to do this year. And kind of in line with that, I definitely need to make a goal of reading at least 2 of my subscription books per month. Now, it doesn't need to be the subscription books that I get that month. You know, I do get my Ellen McCrate and my Fairy Loot every month, but if I'm not interested in them at that time, or if it's maybe summer and it's a bit more of a wintry book or something like that, I'm not going to be so rigid as to say I have to read those books that month. I need to at least read 2 of my subscription books per month. I've got a huge backlog of my subscription books that I haven't read, and quite honestly, I think the longer they sit in my shelves, the less interested I get in them. So just trying to work through that backlog, and if there's books that I know I'm not going to read, I'd be better passing them on to someone who may end up enjoying them. So yeah, again, just trying to make sure that I'm getting the value for money there. I also want to try to stop reading Goodreads reviews before I've read a book, or even kind of looking at the rating, to be quite honest, because I just feel like sometimes I'll look at the Goodreads review and someone will maybe say something that's not a spoiler or anything, but they'll say the writing was really clunky, or you know, it was too flowery, it was childlike, it was whatever it may be. There'll be some sort of criticism on the book within the review, and I'll find myself looking for that when I'm reading it, and I do think it just really affects firstly my enjoyment, but then also my perception and my review. So I really want to try and go into books this year with a really clear mind, not really having anybody else's preconception as much as possible. You know, you will see books on Bookstagram and things like that, but not intentionally going to look and see what people have said about it, because it will just cloud my judgment. It'll probably cloud my perception as well, and I just want to see what I feel about the books before taking in someone else's ideas. So definitely trying to be really good about that this year and not actively looking up reviews before I'm reading something. And then lastly, I do want to try and keep up with my reading journal. So I'm already slightly behind on this. I'm a little bit behind. I had hoped to have kind of my first few spreads finished by now, but I just haven't had time to sit down and do it. So definitely I'm lagging a little bit in that, but I do want to try and make my reading journal as simple as possible so that I can keep up with it throughout the year. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm not going to put too much pressure on myself with that one because it is supposed to be for fun. It shouldn't be a chore, but I do always really enjoy it when I do it, and I loved looking back at the few months that I completed from last year. So definitely want to try and keep up with that and just try and keep it simple so that it is something that's easy for me to do and that I do end up enjoying it. So next up is a question that I think is probably a little bit mean, but it's a book that's on my TBR that I'll probably never read. And the first book that came to mind when this came up, and I don't know why I haven't picked it up, or I don't know why I think I'll never read it, but it was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Now, I've had a copy of this book for such a long time, I think probably coming on 3 years or something like that, and it's just never been something that I wanted to reach for. I've heard it's really great, I've heard the writing's lovely, I've heard it's quite a poignant story, and it sounds like it would be something I would love, but every time I go to reach for it, I'm just not feeling it. So never say never, but I'm pretty sure I'm probably not going to read that one. Then I was looking at my classic shelves because I think of all the sections within my home library, if there's any genre that I'm probably not going to read from but I may buy a copy of, it's probably my classics, and the one that really stuck out was Les Mis by Victor Hugo, and no real reason why I don't think I'll read it. It is pretty long. I love the musical. It's one of my top favourite musicals, which is why I have a lovely edition of it, but do I think I'll ever read it? Probably not. So next up is a series I want to read this year, and again it's just kind of tackling that backlog by wanting to read Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco, and mainly it's because I have some of the spin-off series. I have special editions of those books and I can't read them until I've read that series, so definitely a high priority for me to read this year. Then the next one is auto-buy authors going into 2025, and to be honest they're probably quite similar to my auto-buy authors that I've had for the past few years. So obviously Sarah J Maas is one that I will always buy from, but I would also say obviously Sabaa Tahir, Olivia Blake, Cassandra Clare, Laini Taylor, definitely if she brings out anything I would read it from her. Adeline Grace is another one. I loved her Belladonna series. There is quite a few, to be fair, that I would probably auto buy, which is probably a bad thing for my bank account, but it also makes me really happy that there's so many authors that I'm basically loving and pretty much trust anything that they bring out. So yeah, it's a pretty long list on that one, but those are a few that just come to mind as soon as I think about it. Next up is a sequel I'm anticipating, and again there's quite a few on my anticipated releases list, but one that I'm really anticipating is The Ballad of Falling Dragons by Sarah A. Parker, and this is the sequel to When the Moon Hatched because I really loved that first book. I just loved the writing style, really loved how immersive it was, loved the story, even though it's a trope that I don't usually enjoy. She done it really well and I was really enthralled in the story, so really excited to see where she takes that one. Can't wait to see what happens after the ending of the first book. Next up is Bookish Things I'm Leaving in 2024, and I've mentioned a few of them in my goals, so obviously not DNFing, not reading books that I'm loving, and not reading books based off their Goodreads rating. But one that I really do want to concentrate on as well is not reading books just because they're popular. You know, there's a lot of books that I've read in the past that I've kind of went into knowing that I'm not going to enjoy them, knowing that it's not something for me and not something that I would usually enjoy, and then I end up hating them. And it's just not fair to the authors. You know, if I'm not the target demographic for it, if I know I'm not going to enjoy it, I shouldn't really be reading it going in when I'm knowing that. It's different if I read a popular book and it just doesn't turn out to be for me, that's different. But there's quite a few books that I've read just because they've been popular, even though I had a feeling I wasn't going to like them, and I was basically proved right. So definitely going to try and not be peer pressured into reading things that I know I'm probably not going to enjoy just because they're popular. And I just want to say one thing that I think everyone should be leaving in 2024 is anyone feeling like they're better than someone else because of the type of genres that they read. My bookstagram and my threads and things like that do tend to be pretty positive. Most of the people that I interact with, we're all positive people, you know, we all just love that everyone loves reading. But I do tend to see quite a few things about people really bashing on certain fandoms, certain genres, you know, especially when it comes to romance and romantasy. Tends to get a lot of hate for no reason, and especially by people who have never read it before. They don't really have a reason to look down upon anyone who reads those genres. But I think the main thing that I'm going to be leaving in 2024 is feeling ashamed of certain series that I love or tropes that I love or genres that I love just because other people don't think they're good enough or that it's real reading if you're reading that genre, which is absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, that's just something I think we should be leaving in 2024. Just anyone judging anyone for what they're reading. Everyone should just read what they love, and as long as someone's reading, I'm happy. So next up is how has my reading evolved over the last year, and I think just over the last year, maybe the last 2 years, I've definitely realised that I'm someone who really enjoys flowery and really descriptive writing. A lot of people don't like that, but for me personally, as soon as I see someone complain about that in a book, I'm writing it down and getting it on my TBR. It's just something I really enjoy, and I think it just helps me get really immersed within the story. So I've definitely realised that even if the descriptions are unnecessary, it's something that I love. I think in the last year I definitely feel as if romantasy hasn't been hitting for me the same way as it used to. As I said, it'll probably always be my favourite genre, but I don't know if it's that my reading tastes are changing or if the genre is changing and I need to kind of be more stringent with what I'm reading, but it just hasn't been hitting for me the same way, and that's kind of why I'm seeking more high fantasy with a romance subplot, because that tends to be something that I enjoy more. And again, it may just be a phase. It may just be a phase I'm going through and certain things aren't as enjoyable at the moment, and it will come around again, because there are still some romantasy that I am picking up and really enjoying, but usually it would be kind of everyone would be 5-star, and I don't know if I've just really saturated my brain with romantasy that I'm being a little bit more picky with them. But yeah, just finding that it's not something I'm gravitating towards as much at the moment. I find that I really love immersive reading, so reading while listening to the audiobook, so physically reading it but also listening to the audiobook at the same time, something I really enjoy. It really helps me to concentrate on the story, concentrate on what I'm reading. My mind doesn't wander away while I'm doing that, and I just find as long as you have a really good narrator, it just makes the experience so much better. So yeah, definitely really enjoyed doing that. And I think as well, romance was a genre, as I say, that I don't really gravitate towards, but last year I actually found quite a few, when I made a real effort to read them, I found quite a few that I ended up rating 5 stars. So even though my reading tastes in a sense haven't evolved, I definitely just think that I need to make an effort to reach out to those genres to make sure I'm not missing out on 5-star books that I haven't read. Then next up are who are the booktubers who have inspired you, and obviously Larry Reed's would be one, because I got this idea from her. Love her energy, I just think she's really fun. Love watching her videos, even though most of the books that she would read aren't really my genre or what I would enjoy. I just love her personality, so I love watching her videos and getting some ideas from her. There's a really long list, I'm just going to read out some of them, but Ella Rose reads, Alan Catherine, Sarah Crowley, Jen C. reads, Sarah Hafidi, Shaughnessy Schroeder, Coffee and Tales, Elliot Brooks, and then I do have a group of friends on Bookstagram that we're all kind of smaller booktubers and just all working together together, and again they've all inspired me hugely. So there's probably a few that I've missed that are some of my favourites, but I know on that list basically as soon as I post a video I'm going to watch it. I'm still quite new, obviously I haven't been here for a year yet or anything like that, and I just love the support and the community and how lovely everyone has been since I've kind of joined Booktube, and yeah, just watching all of those channels definitely gets me inspired. And then next up is Booktube goals, and I think for me I do want to try and do more reading vlogs, and I'll be very honest and candid and just say that reading vlogs for me just don't seem to be coming as naturally as maybe a sit down video. I find it very easy to just sit and talk about the books that I've read, talk about books that I would recommend and things like that, but somehow with reading vlogs I just feel like I'm not sure if there's something missing. So obviously if you do have any feedback or if there's any ideas that you have for me, definitely let me know. But I would like to try to do a few more reading vlogs just to become a bit more natural with them and just see what type of vlog comes naturally to me and see what my style is. And other than that, the goals are just to keep being consistent. You know, I post 2 videos per week, just trying to continue to do that, to keep interacting and hopefully meet, you know, more community here and keep building my channel. It's very much a hobby for me, so I'm just trying to really hone in skills in video editing and filming and all of those different things. So it's just been really fun. So I think for the moment my goals are really just to continue doing what I'm doing and just make sure I always enjoy it, because it is a hobby for me, so the main objective is for it to be fun. So yeah, as soon as I stop enjoying it I'll maybe change things up, but for the minute just going to keep doing what I'm doing. So that's everything, that's all the questions. Definitely let me know what your bookish goals are, you know, things that you're going to be aiming towards this year. I think most of my goals are really just about me trying to enjoy my reading and make sure that it's always a hobby for me and doesn't become a chore. And there's so many books that I want to read, so many books that I'm really anticipating this year, so I definitely think 2025 is going to be a really good reading year. Let me know things you're aiming towards in the comments, and let me know if there's any goals I should be adding to my goals as well. I'm always looking for inspiration, so definitely leave me all your goals below. If you like this video, do remember to give it a like, and if you want to see more from me, remember to subscribe. I'm posting 2 videos per week, and it's videos like this, so bookish tags, book shopping, book hauls, reading vlogs, book recommendation videos, TBR videos, all good bookish things like that. Other than that, thanks so much for watching this one. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one soon. Bye!